Okay, so hello and welcome. I'm Louis and I'm going to take you through my project that I've done for a advanced character prototyping. So I've gone for like a pirate sort of theme. I've picked a character. I'm going to go through some of the techniques I've used to actually build the character. I'm going to go through the interactables that I've added. I'm going to take you through the enemies, and then the last thing I'll do is I'll take you around the whole level that I've created here, just kind of getting insight to what all the stuff that I've created looks like when it's being put together. So first off, my character, wanted to make sure how I was moving the character, it was always kind of like looking forwards. So when the character moves backwards, they're not looking at the camera, they're walking backwards, making sure everything is ahead of them. I spoke about this in my PowerPoint before, how I wanted to make sure any action that happens is always ahead of the character. This made sense for me because when I was doing like a dungeon crawler, I kind of feel like everything I wanted is going to be in front of me. Nothing's really going to be happening. You're not going to go back on yourself, so you're always going to go straight forwards through the level. You're not going to be coming back on yourself, so all the fights, all the items that you need are always in front of you. Yeah, so that took a bit of research into how to set it all up. Animations were needed to make sure that it blended between each set of movements. So I've got like animations for walking, and they go from like walking to jog and then to running. The jog is just there to kind of help the blend a bit better. Like there's not actually a jogging stage for the character, but it just helps to actually combine the different motions together. My companions, as you see here, take you through them next before we take you through the items. So we've got two companions. The one, the wolf, he's going to help us out with the combat. He will just do little bits of damage to the enemies that we'll see later on. And what will happen is, if we are too far away from the wolf, so if we decide it's a bit too out of control, we want to get out of combat, if we're too far away, he will follow us and make sure he doesn't lose sight of us. And if we're back in the fight, he'll make sure he's attacking the enemies, and you'll see that later on. The pumpkin here, the skull that I wanted to create, that is our companion to help us with our inventory, our stats. He's the reason why the player can respawn. You know, I want to make this map to be like as realistic as possible, make everything believable, have sense. So with that in mind, if I hold down F on the keyboard, I can summon him no matter where he is on the map, and then he's in front of me here, and then he brings up all this stuff in our inventory. So you've got like these items here, and this is kind of like a hint as to what you're going to be picking up in the game. You can hover over our weapon here, and we've already got this selected, so you won't need to click that again. We've got this yellow thing down here, which is our coins that we can collect on the way around. So every time we kill an enemy, they will drop at least one of these gold coins, and you collect those as you go around, and then at the end you can see how much you've got left. And then on the right here, this is going to be how many arrows we have. We won't have to pick any up until we actually collect the bow, because otherwise there's going to be no need in having arrows if we don't have the bow. So the bow is going to be the last item that we're going to find, and then from then you can carry up to 10 arrows, and that is because the bow can be quite a nice weapon against all these enemies. Because like enemies are like melee characters, but they can change like how strong they attack, their health, but the bow is quite a nice weapon against them to keep you at range. So I don't want that to be like the only weapon the player will use once the player finds it. So that in mind, I made sure to limit the amount of arrows you can find, and obviously finding the arrows again then, if you run out, you're not guaranteed to find an arrow from an enemy, so you are kind of forced to try out the other weapons as well, make sure you're using all of them. And the other weapons are really nice to use as well. I'll show you those in a moment, and I'll show you them whilst I'm actually going around the map. And then the last thing is the health bar here. The inventory system is all within this widget. So when you pick up a new weapon, it will appear here, and then you can select that, and then when the weapon is selected, it will start to go green round and the box instead of it being yellow, just kind of indicate to the player which weapon they've got equipped already. Lastly, the green dots here. When I pick up a weapon that has an ability, if that ability has been used, this will turn off to kind of indicate to the player when an ability is ready for the player to use, so they can kind of switch out and be like, oh yeah, I want to use that weapon, I've got an ability ready, and use like that. Yeah, so the next thing is I'm gonna go through all these weapons then, and then I've got like items over there. First of all, I've got the standard weapon. It's just a standard sword attack. There's like 2 attacks that you can do. All the sounds. We've got the sword swing that will pair up with the actual swing of the sword, but then the character does like this groan as well, and that's like a randomized sound, so it's not the same sound each time with the same swing. Just to kind of have a bit more randomization would make the character seem more like believable. I didn't want to, you know, sound too robotic with every single movement that you do. I want some things to be like indicators when you're going around, so like colours will kind of indicate something, and you know, the smoke will indicate another thing, which I'll show you in a sec. With this weapon, so here, straight away with this weapon, you've got an emitter around it. It's like an emitter that attaches to the skeleton of the weapon, and this is kind of indicating that the weapon has an ability. And I'll show you again with the inventory on here. There you go, that spawns that now. Yeah. So I'm going to use the ability now, which is meant to be summoning of a sea. So it summons a wave, and then there you go. The skull goes red, the smoke, to indicate that the player can't use the ability again. So I can use that again now. And the sword stops glowing as well. And then when I'm able to use it again, the sword will go back to blue, and then the smoke will go back to black. This will kind of indicate if I'm like fighting enemies, I haven't got time to look at the skull to see if my ability is ready, I can use the sword to kind of tell me it's ready to use again. I kind of want everything, all the UI, to be solely in when I spawn the skull, because I want everything to be like within the game. I don't want the player to be looking around the screen. I want them to be like immersed into the game, and not have to, you know, like keep their eyes off what's happening in the fights. I just picked up the second weapon, which is the dagger. The dagger has an ability as well, and when I use that, it will grow in size. And this just allows the player to attack enemies that are further away. You can attack more at once. Whereas if it's small, it's still fast. As you can see, that the attack speed difference, compared to another sword. So like this one, it's a bit slower. So if the player wants to have like a faster attack, that's definitely one to use. You don't have to go into the inventory all the time to change weapon. I've got them pinned to the numbers, so like 2 takes me back to the ability sword. Number 1 is the default sword, and now we've got 3, so that's the dagger. So now we've got these weapons. The last one is the bow, and the bow, it says it has an ability ready, but I can't use it just yet because I don't have any arrows. So where I've placed it in the level, you'll see I've put arrows nearby it so the player can see that they will have to find arrows by picking them up and adding it to their inventory. So I've got 2 sets here, 1 arrow on its own, which is just 1 arrow to find, and then another group of arrows here, which is a group of 5. So those will be the ones that drop, and now you can see I've got 6 arrows ready to use. However, I will need an enemy to use my ability because it only works on if it collides with an enemy. I'll show you the weapon drawn first, and with this had to add more animations to the movement as well, so it had to be animations whilst the arrows were drawn. make it have sense. I think you can also run with it as well, sort of. It looks a bit, I don't think I did that one. The walker definitely works a bit though, and then you can just fire that, and then you got 5 more, and then yeah, that's the bow. And then the last item here, this is the health regen. So as soon as I pick that up, get a bit of green smoke behind me, and then my health will start regenerating. Which that will be you'll see that when I go through combat. I'll try and show you when my damage is a bit low, and my health needs regenerating. I'll show you the health bar going up, because this health bar will only show when I've got the skull summoned. What I'm going to do quickly is I'm going to reset the game, because I don't want to have all my weapons here ready. I'm going to reset it. I'm going to talk to you about what's going to come down this corridor, and then how to get through the actual level. Alright, back in a sec. Okay, so I've reset the game, and now we're going to go through the level and talk to you about stuff I haven't spoken about, such as these little pillars here. So we've got this one that says press E up ahead, player walks forwards, and then they'll create some coins to pick up, which they do automatically, and then they can come to this pillar, and it glows up a little bit, so I press E on that, and the smoke starts to turn yellow. And what will happen is, if I die, instead of just kind of respawning, having another life, I will respawn back at this beacon, and I'll show you that first. To be fair, I've got another beacon here that says shift to run. I'm looking at these blocks here. I'm just going to run straight at them, and I can see my character can run straight through the blocks. So when I get into this area, enemies will start spawning in. There is the default enemy, which is the one in front of me, and he can either carry a sword or an axe. And you've got the soup, it's a harder enemy to kill. He does more damage, and he's got like an axe to kind of show that. The axe kind of has like a golden glow around it to kind of tell the player this is a bit more damaging than the original sword. And then yeah, once all these enemies are destroyed, these blocks kind of take physical effects. So now I can straight break through these. My companions can follow through with me, and we can move on to the next step. And before we get to there, we can pick up our next weapon, which we know now how to use, what ability it does. We can get our next spawn beacon, and this is where we learn how to use our equipment. So once you've had your first weapon, you can be like, oh, okay, so I've got a whole like inventory system here to look into, and when I get to here, it'll tell you to press Q, and then you can learn, oh yeah, I've got an ability on this weapon, and you can see all the stuff that happens. So like the skull turns red, my sword, and the blue goes away and comes back. That little sound as well for when the ability is ready, that I'll do it again for you. So when the timer returns back to 0, that sound plays, and I'm ready to use my ability again. So all those cues can help the player whilst they're in combat. Yeah, that's the wolf in action. There we go. I like to do a lot of messing around with like how much damage players do, how much damage the wolf does, just to kind of like balance it all out really. Obviously it can still be changed. Now this is what I'm going to go for. I'm going to try and get the enemies to kill me. There we go, I'm almost there. Just so you can see the respawning at the beacon and what happens when I do die. Go on. There we go. So the purple smoke appears, and when, if you remember, at these beacons, let's get rid of these guys. The beacon was originally purple, so when like you die, you start getting purple smoke to kind of hint that that's like linked to the beacon. I kind of want to get that sort of message across in this game, because you've got the skull and the player combined. Yeah, the skull was going purple as well, just to kind of help the player realise that the skull and the player are tethered together. I kind of like that aspect, because it kind of shows like how the player's able to use magic, how they're able to respawn. It's not just like a random thing. Like even when even when these characters spawn in, they're kind of spawning from smoke. It's not just from thin air. I'll show you the dagger in combat. So nice, fast, and very useful, nice and powerful. And then we've got our much stronger dagger here. So you've got a few weapons to kind of like choose from when you're going through the game. Even this, like, the environments are kind of built in mind, so because this is a dagger, you want to get in small proximity areas. This kind of is a smaller room compared to the last one, just kind of force the player into close combat, because I know he'll have the speed to sort that out. And obviously then again, these blocks will become loose to break through. I think one of the struggles was kind of having a way for my AI to get through these routes, because sometimes they're a struggle to navigate. I had a look at the nav mesh when it was actually breaking the wall, and you had to kind of make sure the bricks were spread apart. I did try using like a ramp, so the actors would jump down and then use the nav point mesh, where you kind of like, you could put a point A and point B down, so the AIs like kind of know a safe route to go, and they'll just jump down without like kind of questioning whether it's a navigational route. And that worked, but it wasn't very interactable and wasn't very like fun to figure out how to get to the next level. Nothing was stopping the player from going to the next level. Whereas this system, those blocks over there, they're all solid right now. And what will happen until I've defeated all these enemies in this area, those blocks will remain like together. And what I'll do, I'll go and do that right now for you. So I'm just going to ignore these enemies, and I'm going to show you. You cannot go through this area until these enemies have been defeated. My beautiful aim. My aim is great. Oh, and I haven't showed the ability of this weapon yet, have I? So that is the ability. I think you can, from the sounds and from the visuals, I think you can kind of guess what it does. So basically, it has a cloud of, it's like a storm cloud, and then anyone who steps into it, my aim is dire. I mean, this is why you want to change to a different weapon sometimes. Let's change back to the dagger. Let's get rid of these enemies and I'll have a good chat. And then those blocks have become looser. The last area is the boss area. And so basically you can kind of test out all your skills. You've had like a little challenge of using all your skills at the minute. We've got all our weapons here ready now. Oh, there we go, my health's gone down. We've got like a health regen here, and we should be able to watch that go up with our skull. There we go, so that goes up now. We're nice and full. I'm going to get the bow back out for our last section. We've got a boss, so it basically is it looks the same as the original skeletons, but it's got much higher health. I think the attack is like double as strong. But yeah, so you've got that. You've got, I think you can see from here, the normal skeletons got like axes they can choose between, or a sword. You've got the like super skeletons that have a shiny axe, and that's going to be like the biggest challenge of the whole level. There we go, let's break through. Let's start getting rid of some of these. Oh, okay. There we go. I don't know if you can see in the background as well, if these skeletons kind of walk somewhere and they're not really doing anything, they'll kind of have like a little emotion going on. So they'll kind of just bounce around. I see that one right there, it did like a little taunty sort of thing. That's just kind of like showing like, I couldn't really find the exact animation that I wanted. What they're doing is kind of like, imagine you're patrolling, enemies patrolling, and just doing like some sort of little animation whilst they're just investigating, kind of growing in each other, rather than just doing walking, rather than just walking all the time. That's something that a bit extra to the animation system, make it a bit more realistic. I think I would have liked to add more animations that they could have done, but as I said, they didn't really have much of a selection to choose from, and importing a fresh animation into onto their skeleton wasn't working, so the animation pack that they came with was what I had to use instead. I think this ability is probably my favourite ability. It sounds great, like the animation for it. You can tell, you can know exactly what it's supposed to do. And you can see, this is the boss now. You can see the red dots around it. That's another emitter attached to the skeleton. And then kind of the red kind of shows like it's got more health. The height helps with kind of telling the player that as well. But I think a bit of there we go, destroyed. I think the red emitter kind of helps to tell the player even more. There's something stronger about this character, something different. As I've learnt in some of the research, like adding that difference to a character can kind of hint to the player to watch out for something new. And yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else to talk about really. You can kind of change the stats in this as much as you want. Like the boss could have had more health. I could have had more enemies spawn here. All that can be changed quite easily. I've got a lot of public value variables that can be changed, and yeah, I think that should be everything. So yeah, thank you for listening to my walkthrough, and hope that was enjoyable for you. Cheers.